The wind swept harshly across the desolate plains, carrying with it a chill that sank deep into the bones. Samuel Hayes tightened the worn leather strap of his coat around his chest, his face half shadowed beneath the brim of his hat. He had seen plenty of days colder than this, but tonight felt different, emptier, lonelier. His cabin stood only a mile behind him, a crooked little place by a half-frozen creek, but he hadn't found much warmth inside it since his wife, Clara, passed 2 winters ago. The silence in that house was a weight heavier than any snowfall. Most nights, Samuel busied himself with work until exhaustion dulled his grief, mending fences, chopping wood, or hunting small game. Work kept his hands busy and his thoughts at bay. But the truth was inescapable: he was a struggling widower, clinging to survival in a land that seemed to take more than it ever gave. That evening, as twilight spread like ink across the sky, Samuel noticed smoke rising faintly in the distance, not the steady stream of a campfire, but the jagged plumes of destruction. His heart tightened. Out on these plains, smoke usually meant trouble. Bandits, raids, death. Cautious but compelled, Samuel rode his weary mare toward the blackened horizon. As he crested a small rise, the scene below froze him in place. A wagon train, 6 carriages strong, lay shattered and burning. Horses lay slain, cargo scattered, and bodies sprawled in the dirt like discarded dolls. His stomach turned, but his eyes searched desperately among the wreckage. Survivors. There had to be at least one. He dismounted slowly, rifle ready, scanning for movement. The stench of smoke and blood clung to the air. Then, beneath the charred frame of an overturned wagon, he heard it, a faint, broken whimper. Samuel dropped his rifle and rushed forward, pulling debris aside with raw strength born of urgency. There, half buried in splintered wood and ash, was a woman. Her dress, though torn and muddied, was unlike anything worn by frontier folk, finely stitched, trimmed with lace, once elegant before fire and blood had claimed it. Her face was pale, streaked with dirt and tears, but her eyes, wide, desperate, locked onto his. "Help, please," she whispered, her voice thin as thread. Samuel's hands trembled as he lifted her free. She was bruised, one arm bleeding, but alive. Alive. He pressed a hand to her wrist and felt a pulse, fragile yet steady. Relief washed over him like rain on parched earth. "You're safe now," he murmured, though the words felt hollow against the devastation around them. He didn't know who she was, where she'd come from, or what kind of tragedy had swept through her caravan. All he knew was that she was breathing, and that was enough. He carried her to his horse, bundling her in the frayed blanket he kept tied to the saddle. As they rode back to his cabin, Samuel couldn't help but wonder what fate had drawn him into this night. He had lost everything once. Why had God spared this stranger for him to find? The next days blurred together. Samuel tended to the woman's wounds as best he could with the meager supplies he had, cleaning cuts, wrapping bandages, spooning broth past her lips when she was strong enough to swallow. She said little at first, her strength spent on healing, but her eyes followed him around the cabin, studying him with a mixture of gratitude and unspoken sorrow. On the 4th morning, her voice finally carried more than a whisper. "What is your name?" she asked, sitting propped against his patched quilts. "Samuel Hayes," he replied simply, pouring water into a tin cup. She hesitated, her hands trembling as she accepted the drink. I am Eleanor." She paused, as if weighing whether to reveal more. Eleanor Barrington. The name meant nothing to Samuel, though she seemed to expect recognition. To him, she was simply Eleanor, the woman he had pulled from fire and ruin, now fighting her way back to life in the solitude of his cabin. "You saved me," she said, her voice breaking slightly. "I thought I would die there." Samuel looked down at his rough, calloused hands. "No one deserves to die alone in the dirt. Not if I can help it." For the first time in years, Samuel felt a flicker of warmth stir in his chest. Clara had always believed in kindness, even in a cruel world. She used to say, "What we give to others, Sam, is what makes life worth living." He had forgotten that, buried it beneath grief and hardship. But now, watching Eleanor regain strength, he wondered if Clara's words still lived within him. As days stretched into weeks, Samuel and Eleanor found a rhythm. He tended the land while she mended what she could inside, sewing torn clothes with surprising skill, tidying the clutter, even humming soft melodies that brought a fragile lightness to the air. Samuel was not a man of many words, but slowly, cautiously, he found himself speaking again, sharing stories of Clara, of the seasons, of the quiet battles of survival. Eleanor listened intently, her gaze steady and kind. In return, she revealed fragments of her own past. She spoke of England, of vast estates and polished halls, of carriages and servants. At first, Samuel thought her fever had made her delirious, but her poise and mannerisms carried truth. She was no ordinary traveler. She had been born into wealth, into nobility. Yet here she was, alive only because a struggling widower had carried her from death's doorstep. Samuel never treated her differently. To him, she was not a baroness, not a figure of status, but a woman who had endured unimaginable loss and still found the will to rise each morning. That, he respected. That, he understood. But the world outside Samuel's cabin had not forgotten Eleanor. One evening, as snow fell thick and silent, riders appeared on the horizon, armed men bearing the insignia of her family's crest. Samuel bristled at their approach, rifle in hand, until Eleanor stepped forward, tears shining in her eyes. "They are my father's men," she explained softly. "They've been searching for me." The leader dismounted, bowing low. "My lady Baroness, thank God you are alive. Your father grieved you as lost." Samuel's breath caught. Baroness. The truth hit him fully then. He had saved not just a woman, but a titled noble, a figure of power and wealth he could never imagine touching his life. Eleanor turned to him, her expression tender but pained. "Samuel, I never wished to deceive you. I only wished to heal as myself, not as a name or title. You gave me that gift." Samuel shifted uneasily, unsure how to bridge the gulf that yawned suddenly between them. "You don't owe me anything," he muttered. "I only did what anyone would have done." But Eleanor stepped closer, her voice firm. "No, Samuel, not anyone. Many would have left me there. You did not. You gave me life when I had none. You gave me hope. The riders urged Eleanor to return with them, to rejoin the world that awaited her wealth and position. But before leaving, she clasped Samuel's hands in hers, her eyes shimmering with something deeper than gratitude. "I will not forget you," she said. "What you gave me cannot be measured in coin or title. You reminded me that kindness is the truest wealth of all." Samuel's heart ached as he watched her depart, her figure vanishing into the snowfall. The cabin felt unbearably empty once more, yet something within him had changed. The silence no longer crushed him, it held echoes of her laughter, her songs, her words. Weeks later, when Samuel least expected it, a letter arrived sealed in gold. Inside, Eleanor's handwriting flowed with grace. "My dearest Samuel, I have returned to England, but I cannot forget the man who saved me. I owe you more than life, I owe you the restoration of my soul. Please accept the enclosed deed. The land surrounding your cabin is now yours, free and clear. No man may take it from you. Use it well, and know that across the ocean, a baroness prays for your happiness." Samuel's hands shook as he unfolded the parchment. For the first time since Clara's passing, he wept, not from grief, but from gratitude. His struggles would not vanish overnight, but the burden had lifted. He was no longer merely surviving, he had been seen, valued, remembered. And so, Samuel Hayes, the widower who once thought himself forgotten by the world, learned that a single act of compassion could change the course of 2 lives. He saved a woman, not knowing she was a baroness, and in doing so, saved himself. The plains still stretched vast and lonely, but Samuel no longer feared their silence. Within it lived the truth he had rediscovered, that even in the harshest wilderness, kindness could kindle hope strong enough to carry hearts across oceans.